great to be back. Sorry about the change venue. Sorry we're running a little bit late. Took a bit of time to set up over here. Longer than I thought. Anyway, so today we are learning Be'ezra Hashem Brachas Daf Mem Daled Amud Aleph. Okay, we're the Mishnah, top of the page. He in front of Maliach. They brought in front of him Maliach. Tchila. Maliach is some type of salty fish. Salt, anything salty nowadays, I guess. That's herring, salty fish, or pickle, something very salty. And there's bread. They bring in front of him, so salt and bread, right? What do? You make a bracha on the herring, and you don't have to make a bracha on the cracker. That's what we were talking about here. Basically, that's what is relevant nowadays. You have a nice piece of salty fish. You don't just eat the fish like that. You put it on a cracker, whether it's to hold the fish, to take away a bit of the salt, it shouldn't be too salty. So what do? The pas is secondary to the fish, to the salt. In other words, you're not having this because you want to have bread now. You're doing this because you want to have, it's not a sandwich, you're not having a tuna sandwich where you want the bread. You don't want the bread. You want to have the salty thing. You want to have the herring. But it's too salty. You got to have a cracker with it. You got to have some bread with it to take away the salt, to makes it edible. So the pas is tougher. Like the pas is secondary, so you do not make a bracha on the bread. Zaklal, this is the rule, and knowlege is in this Mishnah. Zaklal kol shu ikar, anything that's ikar v'imay tefela, and you have something with it that's secondary, that's a tofel. You make a bracha on the main thing, on the thing you want to eat, and that relieves you from making a bracha on the secondary thing. So zaklal. You make a bracha in the ikar and you part on the tefela. So that's what the Mishnah comes to tell me. One rule, no one argues. You make a bracha on the ikar, you don't have to make a bracha on the tafel. Again, you want to have your cracker with herring, you make a bracha on the salty herring, shakol, and you don't need to make a bracha on the pas, on the bread, even though the bread or crackers is shivs of minim, it's more important. But it's ikar and tafel. It's Mavur and Achronim. The tafel needs a bracha. You can't eat the tafel without a bracha. But the bracha that you make on the ikar, on the thing that you want to eat, that relieves you from making a bracha on the tafel. It's not that it doesn't need a bracha. You can't just eat it away without making a bracha. But the bracha, that's the bracha you make. The bracha shakal, that will part you for making the bracha on the tafel. Okay, gemorah. Mendalad Amud Aleph, fifth line, says the gemorah. Is there really such a thing? Does it exist that the salty thing is the main thing and the bread is tafel? Does that really exist? That the bread is not the main part of the meal? The bread is a secondary thing? I guess the gemorah's kasha is that, like, come on, that doesn't really exist. You always want to have the bread. You always want to be satiated with the bread. Amar of Acha Bereider Avira. Amar of Ashi. What are we talking about here? We're talking about a unique case. We're talking about a unique case that what? The Mishnah is talking about a case where the guy's eating fruits of genoisar. Genoisar, the Rishonim explain, was on the Kinneret lake, the Lake Kinneret up north in Israel, and the fruits that were so sweet and so delicious, Peres Genoisar. That's what we're talking about here. So what? We're going to see. So basically what it means is that he ate these deliciously sweet fruit, and we'll see that you could get drunk from these fruit. These fruits are so sweet and so tasteful, so tasty that all sorts of things happen to people drinking them. They get drunk from it, literally. So he's having these sweet, sweet fruit. And now you need to have something salty to take away. It's too sweet for you. You need something to take away that sweetness. It's too sweet for you, right? So you have now, because it's too sweet, you have to have the salt. You have to have that herring, take away the sweetness. And now, because you have the salt, you got to take bread, so it shouldn't be too salty for you. So that's what's going on over here. And therefore what? So therefore, in that case, you make a bracha on the meliach and it patters the bread. You make a bracha on the herring, you don't make a bracha on the bread. We're talking about a case where you're eating peres ginaisar, the fruit, and you don't really want to have the herring either. You don't want to have the pickle either. You're only having a salty pickle to take away the sweetness. So basically, you're having the fruit. Because of that, you're having your pickle. Because of that, you're having the bread. So take a look at Taisus. Taisus says, what is going on over here? Taisus says, top Taisus. Let's see what Taisus says. The salty thing you're having, the pickle, that's the main thing. It's coming to satiate your heart, to relieve your heart, because which we got weakened because of the sweetness of the fruit. And the bread for this pickle, that's tafel. That's only coming for the salt. So Taisus asks, what is going on over here? If that's the case, peris have ikar. So in that case, what's the ikar? Is the main thing the pickle? No, the main thing is the fruit. The peris have ikar. Umeliach tafel. If that's the case, why would you make a bracha on the pickle? You make a bracha on the fruit, and that will relieve you from making a bracha on the pickle, on the herring, and on the bread. So why does the Mishnah say you make a bracha on the pickle, on the salt? You should make a bracha on the fruit. We said it's only talking about peres genai, so you're having these delicious sweet fruit, and therefore you have the salty, and therefore you have the bread. So make a bracha on the fruit. That's the ikka. Everything else becomes tofel. That's Taisus kasha. Taisus has to say, what are we talking about? Yeah, talking about you had the fruit in your living room. You sat there, you had your fruit, and then you're just like, oh my gosh, it's too much for me. You went to the kitchen, and there you had your pickle in the kitchen. It's a different place. You had the fruit, but the pickle wasn't there, right? It wasn't ready, it wasn't there. They brought it afterwards. You didn't need it. You thought you were going to be fine with the fruit. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it's too much for me. I need to have something salty. So that's what Taisus understands. Rabbeinu Yonah says, no. That's not what's going on over here. We're not talking about here a case where it's not there, even if it's in front of you. According to Rabbeinu Yonah, what the Mishnah means, once we said we're talking about peres genosar, that in Hachanami, you make a bracha on the peres genoisa, and that part is you from the fruit, and that part is you also from the salty thing, and that also part is you from the bread. You do make a bracha on the fruit. So Taisus kasha kontra beiniyana, that's the maskan of the gemorah. L'maisa, what happens nowadays? The Torah seems to say that nowadays, if you have your herring and cracker, you make a bracha on the herring. You don't have to make a bracha on the cracker. They're asking him, what are you talking about? The Gemara here says, peres genoisa, meaning you don't want the herring. Only in the case of peres genoisa will the herring party from the bread, will the salty party from the bread. Why? What's the difference? Because if you're having the herring because you want to have the herring, that's not such an ikka, right? You happen to want to have something salty, and you have bread, so you have to make a bracha on both. But if you need to have the bread, the salty thing, you need to have the herring because you're weak, you had too much sweet, and now, oh my gosh, I need something salty, then that makes it into real ikka. That makes the fruit into real ikka. That makes the salty thing into something ikka, which will pati from the tefillah. But if stam, you're having a bit of herring, that's not enough of the ikka to pati from the tafel. That's just someone to understand. So either way, it comes out a big machlekes over here. When do we say this klal? The Gemara seems to be saying that you'll never say that salty will pat the bread unless there's peres genes, unless there's a chiv. You had to have the salty. Okay, we're not going to get into the halachic psak here too much. Let's keep going on the Gemara. It says the Gemara. We're in the fourth line of the Gemara. I was walking behind Rav Yochanan. I think I was going to speak about these peres genoisa, how amazing they were. So I was walking behind Rav Yochanan. They went to eat peres genoisa. And before I should explain why are they busy eating these peres genoisa, we'll see that there's all sorts of things that they're running around eating peres genoisa. What was the inyan? Some say because there's something spiritual about it. Some say it's be Meshavech Eretz Yisrael. They want to speak about how amazing Eretz Yisrael is. They want to appreciate Eretz Yisraal. Therefore, they're running up north to eat these beautiful Peres Geneisa. So they went to eat, Reb Chaim went to eat Peres Geneisa. Now, the Gemara says a different place. Reb Chaim was this huge balbasa. He was a massive, massive guy. I think cows could walk under his stomach. Massive. So he went to eat Peres Geneisa. If there was 100 people with him, 100 people, each one would carry 10 fruit. If there be 110 people with us, so 10 of us, each one would have to carry 100 fruit. Meaning, you need approximately 1,000 of these fruit. 1,000 fruit. And each 100 of the fruit have a 100 of each fruit would fill up 3 saw, a barrel of 3 saw. A saw is around 10 to 15 liters, so 10 fruit would be about 50 liters. So he would eat 10 of those. So he would eat about 150 liters, 150 liters of Peres Geneisa. That's the cheshbon. That's my cheshbon. And let's see anyone make the calculation. And then he swore the light times ziyana. Even though he ate 1,000 of these fruit, he swore that the light times ziyuna, he didn't taste sustenance. Ziyuna, something that sustains you, something that he swore he didn't taste anything that sustained him. Ziyuna sakadaitach really didn't sustain him. Of course, there's some type of sustenance. He wasn't satiated. He ate 1,000 of these fruit, and he still was not satiated. Okay. He ate so much until a fly would slide off his head. He became so oily that a fly couldn't land on his face. It just glided off. They would eat until their hair would fall out. They ate so much of this Peres Geneisa. Reb Chaim ate ad morid. He ate until he was morid, until he became a type of drunk. He was drunk from the fruit, and he was married. He didn't want to go home. He was like, that's it. He's staying out. He became drunk. Reb Chaim, who was Reb Shimon ben Lakish's brother-in-law, he gave him his sister to marry when Reb Chaim was a gadol, and Rish Lakish he was a gangster, he was a bandit. He was a highway robber, and he saw how strong Rish Lakish was. He saw his kaiches and He said, if you'd chayzer b'tshuva, you'll marry my sister. I think it was his sister. So his brother-in-law, Reb Chaim, says to him, and they're always arguing the gemorah, Reb Chaim and Rish Lakish. So Reb Chaim said to him, Bein Yisai, he didn't want to get involved personally with his brother-in-law. He told the Bein Yisai, V'hava Meshadel Rabbi Yehuda Nisai. They sent Rabbi Yehuda, the president, Balushi Abbas. They sent agents after him, or Maisel Beise, and they brought him home. So that's how drunk Rish Lakish got from eating the Peres Geneisa. Rav Dimi came and said, Ir achas haisel Yanai Melech, Bahar Melech. Yanai the king, had a city. They would take out 600,000 barrels of Taurus, which is tuna, of chopped up fish. Okay, what were they doing with 600,000 barrels of fish? They could say ta'anim, for the people who were chopping the ta'anim. Erev Shabbos, every Erev Shabbos they bought 600,000 of this fish. That's how much ta'anim was growing in Eretz Yisrael at the time. So some explain that the reason why it's saying this, these chopped up fish were salty fish. And when the people who work in cutting the ta'anim, they would eat and they get drunk, so it was too sweet for them. So they had to have the salty fish, in order to take away the sweetness from the ta'anim. Kiyasu Rabin, Omar, Ilan Echad Yanai Melech Bahar Melech. Yanai Melech had a tree. 3 times a month there would be 40 saw of these geizles, of the chicklets, whatever you call them, baby birds, 3 times a month, 40 saw of them. So a saw is approximately, if I remember correctly, 15 liters? So you're talking about like 60 liters of every month of buds in this one tree. There was a city in Eretz Yisrael, and the name of the city was Gufnis. There was a city called Gufnis, and there was 80 pairs of brothers. So Reuven and Shimon brothers, they married 80 pairs of sisters, Rachel and Leah. So 2 brothers would marry 2 sisters. So 80 such pairs in one city. And then the Rabbanon came in Bavel, that was in Eretz Yisrael. But in Nardar they checked the In Eretz Yisrael there wasn't any brothers married to sisters except for Chisda that married Rami Bar Chama, that Rav Chisda had 2 daughters who married Rami Bar Chama and Maroko Bar Chama. The Gemara says, even though they were Kahanim, the spouses weren't Kahanim. So in Eretz Yisrael, you had 80 Kahanim married to 80 Kahanim. But in Bavel, you only had 2 brothers married to 2 sisters. And who was that? And one of the 2 were Kahanim. So someone will know what's going on over here. What shaykhs, why is the Gemara bringing it? What's very interesting is that Kiyadua, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid says 2 brothers shouldn't marry 2 sisters. And some say it's so that they can be Makayim Mitzvahs Yibum, even though nowadays we're not Makayim Mitzvahs Yibum ever. But he says, because if what's Yibum? If one of the brother dies without children, the other brother has to go and marry the wife of the dead brother to Makayim Zer La'achiv, that the children should be on his name, that he should kill the dead brother who had no children should be Zoicha the children through his brother. But nowadays we're not Miyabim anyway. But some say that's why Rabbi Yehuda Chassid says you shouldn't marry, 2 brothers shouldn't marry 2 sisters. Famous tshuva of, I think it's the Rabbi Yehuda, that says that you're not allowed to have a new Torah. So either you have to say that this was the whole Yehuda Chassid is just eitzes or whatever it is. It's not an issa. He's just saying, giving eitzes. Or he's saying it's a tzavah for his kids. You can't say that it's Torah for everyone. You're not allowed to marry 2 sisters. That's a new Torah. Chas v'shalom say there's any new Torah. There's only one Torah, one old Torah, thousands of years old. There's no Nedarim. You see in the gemorah that they weren't makbid 80 brothers married 80 sisters. That was the usual thing. Says it back to gemorah. Says the gemorah. Amurav, kol suda shein bo melach, ein suda. Any meal that doesn't have salt in it is not a meal. Amurav Chia ba Abak, Amurav Yechanan, says Rav Yechanan, kol suda shein bo sarif, ein suda. Any meal that doesn't have sarif is not a suda. Sarif is soup, or Rashi seems to be saying like a sauce, some type of meat with a sauce. If you're having just a dry piece of meat, that's not a suda. It's got to be with sauce. That's called a suda, or soup. That's a suda. Rashi says marak. It has to have some type of tafshalach, a soft dish, a wet dish. Yesh by marak. That's sauce. Kamoy sorfachaya. So just have a sandwich. That's not called a meal. You have to have something with sauce. That, I guess, a suda means it's satiates you. If you eat something dry, it doesn't satiate you. For all those who are on a diet. Now take a look into it. Okay, let's keep going. Says the Gemara. Mishnah. Ochal anovim v'te'enim. Someone eats dates grapes and figs, right? V'remoinim and pomegranates. Mavarach achrayim, you say after the shalish brachas. The bruchas hamazon, shalish brachas, full benching if you have these fruit. Divrei Rabbi Gamliel. These are the words of Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel's opinion, we've seen it before. You have to properly bench, if you have anovim te'enim remainim. V'chom say bracha asmein shalish. Chom say if you have pomegranates, grapes, what do you make? You say a bracha achas ein shalish. You say alamechi, one that's like 3. Rabbi Kiva says even if you have a vegetable, you had a carrot and you're full, you got to do a full Birchas Hamazon. Shalish brachas. Now, that's the implication of the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'chalta v'savata v'arachta." You eat, you're satiated. Now you bench. So even if it doesn't say if you eat bread, it says v'chalta v'savata. You eat v'arachta. Now you got to thank Hashem. Now back to the Mishnah. If you drink water because you're thirsty, important point here says you're drinking water because you're thirsty. If you're drinking water because you want to take medicine with it, or because you want to wash your mouth out, whatever it is, for some reason you're having water, you don't make a bracha. But if you're having water because you're thirsty, you make a burn nefashos. You make a shakal. The bracha you make before you drink is bar nefashos rabbis. We say it after you drink. But he says you say it before you drink. Okay, let's take a look. My time, also gemorah. My time in the Reb Gamliel. Why does Reb Gamliel say you have to bench? The chesiv, it says in the pasuk. In other words, why does Reb Gamliel say you have to bench? If you had pomegranate, you got to do Birchas Hamazon. Why? It says eretz chida saira. It lists all the yeshivs and minim. Chesiv eretz shalei b'miskas techa balachem. The next pasuk says Eretz Yisrael is a land where you won't eat bread because you're hungry, because you're sad, you're a misken, you're suffering. You won't eat bread from suffering. Then the next verse says, you'll eat, you'll be satiated, and you'll praise Hashem. So you see, the first pasuk is Eretz Chida Saira. It says, it lists all the yeshivs minim, and then it says you're not going to eat bread from hunger. Then it says v'chalta v'savata v'arachta. So v'chalta v'savata v'arachta is going on all the yeshivs minim on the two verses before. Also, it's going on everything. It says yeshivs minim, and it says v'chalta v'savata v'arachta. Rabbanan Chacham say Eretz Ifsikinyan. Since it says Eretz in the middle, Eretz Shalei B'niskus Techa Balachem, that's a new thing, a new sugya. And therefore, only from therefore Chalta V'Savata V'Arachta is only going on Eretz Shalei B'niskus Techa Balachem. It's only going on the bread part. Shivas Aminim, that's gone. We're done with Shivas Aminim, the 7 fruit. Now we're only talking about bread. If you eat bread, Chalta V'Savata V'Arachta. Reb Chaim says, yeah, you're right. Eretz does create a new parsha. What do you learn from the new Eretz? Not that you don't have to bench, but if you chew wheat, you don't cook it, you don't make it into a bagel, you don't make it into a donut. If you just chew raw wheat, then you say B'Aminim Zaynais, or you don't have to bench on that. But for whole Shivas of Minim, he says the first posuk's going on V'chalta V'savata V'arachta, you have to bench even on everything. So turns out, I'm going to mention now because it's running a bit late, that this Ala Michya that we say, Bracha Achas Mein Shalosh, you say 1 out of 3, right? For instead of benching for the Shivas HaMinim. So what is that? Is that the rice? Is that the Rabbanan? The Rashba says that is Daraisa. It's Daraisa. Why is it Daraisa? Because you've got the Shivas HaMinim, this is V'chalta V'savata V'arachta. And it says in the middle Eretz. Now Eretz doesn't mean that there's no bracha at all. There is a bracha. But it doesn't need all 3 brachas. You just say 1, you do 1 out of 3, you do Ala Michya instead of all 3. And that's why, according to Chachamim, the Eretz takes it down from Doraisa, from saying all 3 to Doraisa saying just 1. In other words, you're still going on the Shivas HaMinim, but Eretz takes it down from saying 3 brachas to saying 1 bracha. Rebbe Yoni says, no, there's no such a thing. That's not the drasha. The drasha is once says Eretz, there's no longer a mitzvah Doraisa to bench. And the Ala Michya that we say is 100% Rabbanan. It's not biblical at all. So you got a big machlokes, is Ala Michya Doraisa or Rabbanan? Big nafkaman is going to be, if you're not sure if you said Ala Michya, you have to say it again. If it's Doraisa, you've got to say it again. If it's Rabbanan, you don't have to say it again. Kunter another nafkamina. According to the Ra'ah, if it's Doraisa, what happens if you washed, you ate, Instead of saying Birchas Hamazon, this happens, I've seen this happening live, I've witnessed it, you said Alamechia by mistake. Instead of benching. So Kun Torah, that's it. Kun Torah, you don't have to bench now. You said Alamechia, and Alamechia is Doraisa, even though it's not benching, but it's Doraisa. So Yetzer b'di'evad and Kun to other Rishonim, if you said Alamechia by mistake instead of benching, Yetzer b'di'evad. Yatza, Ritva, I think, says Yatza. If you said Alamechia b'tois instead of benching, Yatza. You can't bench now. If you bench now, it's a bracha levatala. You already Yetzer with you already Yetzer Alamechia. So it turns out one of the questions here is going to be, so what is Alamechia? If it's Doraisa, who made up a bracha, 1 out of 3? Like, where did that come from? Doraisa is benching all 3 things, right? Biblically, you have to say all 3. So how could you get away with biblically saying 1? Where does that come from? So someone to imply, say the implication is that mid-Doraisa, biblically you only have to say 1 bracha. The Torah doesn't say you have to say 3 brachas. Chazal said that's 3 brachas, Doraisa. But Midoraisa, you only have to say 1 bracha. You don't have to say all 3 brachas Midoraisa. You're right, benching is 3 brachas Midoraisa. But you can be Yetzer with only saying 1 bracha. And the proof is that it says that people who work in the trees and they have to bench, they just say the first bracha. So therefore, you see that you can be Yetzer Birchas Hamazon by just saying 1 bracha, even if it's Doraisa. Even if it's Doraisa, you can just say 1 bracha. So therefore, also Alamechia, it could be Doraisa and be 1 bracha. You don't need to have all 3. Some ask, but where do you have all the different things in Birchas Hamazon in your Alamechia? Okay, you don't have everything, but Midoraisa, the Torah says you have to thank Hashem. It doesn't say what you have to say in thanking Hashem. 1 bracha, you Yetzer. If you say 1 bracha, you good. You're Mekayim the mitzvah. All right, let's keep going in the gemorah. We've got a few more minutes. So, Omer Yaakov Ba'idi Omer Chanina said, Rav Yaakov Ba'idi, in the name of Rav Chanina, Kol Shemechames Shaminim Beit Chilem Mevarach Al Ba'ei Minim Zaynis. If you have any of the 5 minim, then you've got to say Ba'ei Minim Zaynis. Hashem created different types of mezainis, food. After you do 1 out of 3 brachas, you do Alamechia. Amar Abu Baba Mari, Amar Yeshua ben Levi, Yeshivs Aminim, if it's one of the Shivas Aminim, you say Boy Priya 8, and then you say one of the 3, Alamechia. Amalei Abayil of Dimi, my new bracha achas mein shalish. What is this bracha achas mein shalish? What is this? Amalei, a peri the 8s. So if you had fruit of the tree, what do you say? This is what you say. Ala 8, Valpriya 8. Thank you, Hashem, for creating the tree and the fruit of the tree. Valtinvas Soda and the fruits of the field. And for giving us this beautiful, desired land, or chava, this wide land. Saying you've given our fathers, you've given the fruit that we should be satiated from its goodness. Hashem, have compassion on us. And on the city of Jerusalem, and on your holy Beis Hamikdash, and on your the Mizbeach, the altar. Build the city of Jerusalem speedily in our days. We should enter it. We should be rejoice. You are good and kind to all. Okay, that's what you say. On the Chameshes minim, if you have a 5 minim, you say okay. And you end up by saying the bracha Hashem ala mechia. So you ask b'may. How do you sign off? What signature? How should you make a bracha at the end? Ki asur v'dimi amarav. So Rav Dimi says in the name that Rav used to say Baruch Rosh Chodesh. When Rav David in Rosh Chodesh, he said Baruch Mekadish Yisrael v'Rosh Chodoshim. So we have an issue here. Can you say Baruch Hashem for 2 things? Can you do a chasimah of a bracha, Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem, and then you mention 2 things. So Rav on Rosh Chodesh said Mekadish Yisrael, he sanctifies Israel and Rosh Chodesh. So here, can you say Ala Oretz Ala Mechia? Or ala peiros v'al gefen. So Rav Chisda Amar ala Oretz al Priya Seah. So Rav Chisda said al haaretz v'al peraseh. He would say two things, for the land and for the fruit. Reb Chaim amar al haaretz v'al peres. Reb Chaim said for the land and for the fruit. So Amar Vamram, there's no machlekes. This is if you live in Israel, and this is if you live in Chutz La'aretz. If you live in Israel, you say al haaretz v'al peraseh, its fruit, and if you live in Chutz La'aretz, outside there, so you say and for the fruit. He says we got it the wrong way around. The opinions are wrong. He lived in Eretz Yisrael. He didn't live in Eretz Yisrael. You say, so switch the shitas that if you live in Eretz Yisrael, you say ala peraseh. But if you don't say, you say ala peres for the fruit. If you live in Chutz La'aretz, say for the fruit. An interesting halachic shaila which comes up is, if you said you're having your pomegranate, and you say ala peraseh, but you also have the apple. Is the ala eitz val priya eitz? Will that relieve you from making a bracha achrona, an after bracha for your apple? Machlokes Rishonim. If that will part you from making a bracha on the apple, I think the Rambam says it does, but the Rosh seems to say it doesn't. So, big machlokes Rishonim over there. I know it's running very late. I just want to take a very quick look in Taisus, because it's the first time in Taisus that he quotes the Rambam, the Maimonides. Take a look in Taisus that says ala eitz val priya eitz. In the middle of Taisus, the B'Sefer Maimonides, he quotes the Rambam. He says, Maimon, his father, Rambam, is Moshe ben Maimon. According to Rambam, when you make ala michya, the gemorah doesn't say this, but according to Rambam and according to Yerushalmi, and Taisus brings it, so I guess Taisus ascribes to this opinion. On Shabbos, you should mention Shabbos, and on Yontif, you should mention Yontif in the ala michya. The minig is not to do this. They says maybe only in those days they would throw in that it's Shabbos. They used to be kaveh suda yain. You sit down and drink wine together, and it was like a meal. But nowadays, in Paris, you sit down and have a fruit meal. Coffee. But nowadays, we're not kaveh suda on fruit and on wine, so therefore, you do not need to say that it's Shabbos. Okay, we will end over here. It's getting late. Thank you very much. It's wonderful seeing you all back. Great to be back. Thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.